Hello and welcome to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Karen. Today is my third video in the series Love Your Home, where I tackle my house one DIY at a time and I invite you to join me. While I'm working, I'm going to share with you tips as well as how we have taught our children to do DIY projects such as painting. To start, I'm painting this discolored white shelf in my bathroom, and then I'm tackling these two frames. If you notice, the top one is more of a cream and the bottom is a white. The unmatching frames has bothered me since I put these two pieces up, and I don't know why I wasn't changing it, but I'm changing it today. These are two small projects that I can take care of in a few hours of an afternoon, but I've noticed that little small projects can come together to make a big impact. Whenever I start a painting project, I want to make sure that whatever I am painting is as clean as possible. That gives me a better finish with the paint. Now I head down to my basement to get some paint supplies. You can see I have these two tall shelf units. I love these shelves. You can get these at Lowe's or Home Depot. And I have all leftover paint. I find that I have some chalk paint here, and so I'm going to try using that. Fortunately, I find this one paintbrush in a box, so I'll use this one. Back upstairs, I'm getting my frames ready to be painted, so I'm taking this Walmart white frame apart. I notice I can't take apart that other frame, and I also can't tape it because I'll ruin the picture. So what I'm going to do is take a piece of cardboard and I'm going to push the cardboard against the frame wherever I happen to be painting. Now I'm ready to open up that can of chalk paint, and I'm really nervous because I'm not even sure how old it is, so I'm hoping that it's still good. Now, I didn't have a stir stick, so as you can see, I'm using one of the kids' wooden rulers. Honestly, I figured, hey, the school year's almost over, and who uses a wooden ruler anyway? Now I'm ready to begin painting, and what I'm doing is I'm doing the underside of this shelf that no one's actually going to see. And I'm doing that for two reasons. My first reason is I need to test the paint and make sure that it's not too old and that it goes on all right. And my second reason is everyone always says you don't need to sand to use chalk paint. You could just go ahead and paint on top of anything. And while that might be true, I've noticed that chalk paint reacts differently on different types of finishes. So I'm seeing how it's going to react to this shelf before I do the top that's going to show. Now this is a very inexpensive shelf that I bought years ago, so technically I could probably go and just buy another one, but I figure a penny saved is a penny earned. I'm using all the materials that I have in the house, and this will give me money that I could spend on something I'd like to have more in the home. While the underside of the shelf is drying, I'm getting started on that 8x10 Walmart white frame. And honestly, I didn't really need to paint this because it's stark white, but I decided I really wanted it to match. Again, I would suggest starting by painting a part of that frame that won't show so you can see how the chalk paint reacts to it. I found that the chalk paint really did not like this particular finish. It was like if you had sprayed WD-40 on something and then poured water over it and you just watched the water scatter. That was what was happening to the paint, and it was gapping. So there were areas that I painted over and the paint just wasn't staying there. I did find that after about 3 coats, you could not see that anymore. But I would have to say that these inexpensive frames don't take to chalk paint very well. If you enlarge the video on your screen as much as possible, I think you can see what was happening. Now I move back over to my shelf to get my first coat across the top, and it's pretty quick work. I'm moving on to this Michael's art piece, which by the way says "Together is my favorite place to be," which is why I had it with our family picture and a map of the world. And as hard as the Walmart frame was to accept the chalk paint, this print was super easy to paint, and if you touched it, you could see it had a real rough, natural finish, so that made it very easy to paint the chalk paint on top. As I paint around the piece, I'm just moving the cardboard as well. One other tip I'll mention with the chalk paint is it did much better when I had a light touch with the brush. So even if I went in with a good deal amount of paint, I went back over it with like a feather touch of the brush, and that helped to get rid of much of the brush strokes. And then if I did 2 coats minimum on each piece, that also got rid of the rest of the brush strokes. Love to know in the comment section below what type of DIY projects you might be tackling, or maybe what ones you'd like to tackle. And if you like this type of video, I hope you'll hit the thumbs up button underneath this video. That really does support my channel. It's very much like telling YouTube as my boss that I'm doing a good job. Here at my channel, This Mainer Mom, it's my goal to bring real life help when life gets real. I cover all areas of home management, so if you're managing a home, you'll want to consider subscribing. You can do that by clicking on the red watermark you see in the bottom right corner of this video, and then if you'll click the bell under the video, YouTube will let you know whenever I upload a new video. I upload a minimum of 2 videos per week. This past week I uploaded 4, but I always try to get up at least 2. Now I'm ready to do a second coat on that shelf. Now that that's done, I could do a second coat on the Walmart frame. After this, I knew I was going to have to step away from the painting for a couple hours. I had other things around the house I had to do, and so I have another tip for you. If you have to leave a project, rather than washing out the brush and then coming back to a wet brush from water, I store my brush in a Glad-Lock bag, and if I'm going to be back at it in a couple of hours, I pop it in the refrigerator, and that helps the paint to stay moist so I can take the brush out and just continue. If I know I'm going to be a few days before I can get back to my project, then I will pop that brush in the Glad-Lock bag and I'll put it in the freezer, and then all I have to do is take it out in the morning to thaw it out and we're good to go. If I know I'm going to be using the same paint, this saves me a ton of time cleaning brushes or even having to buy a new brush. This technique works for interior and exterior paint. I've used it for both when I'm painting walls or painting outside on the house, and it is just a great little tip. I'm finishing up with a final coat on that shelf as well as that Walmart frame. I found the frame from Michael's did not even need a second coat, which was a beautiful thing. I'm so much happier with that frame now that it's a stark white, and my shelf is as good as new with no more dark spots or dirt. I had some candle smoke stains on the bottom and it just wasn't looking nice, and there's that Walmart frame. After a few coats, it's looking good. My project's done. I'm heading upstairs. My younger 3 daughters all share a room. This is Ava, and she's 13 years old, and she is one of the DIY queens of the house right now. My husband painted the girls' ceiling, but she offered to do all the cutting on the edge of the ceiling. So she's getting things taped off and she's getting things covered up. Her sister's bed is being covered, as well as the things that are on the wall, so that she can get painting. While she's painting, I thought it would be a good idea to give you some tips on how I taught my children to do DIY projects around the home, specifically painting. Okay, don't fall, Ava. Okay, she's good. She's got this. I've had all 7 of my children doing painting projects around the house at one time or another. Here's how. First of all, I always started them on a large area, like a large interior wall. Secondly, I make sure to tape really well and use a lot of drop cloths. I literally cover that entire room and anything that's in the room. Thirdly, I make sure they have clothing on that can be ruined. And fourthly, I make sure that they wear socks that they can take off when they leave the room, because I learned the hard way that if I don't do that, I'm going to end up with some painted footprints. Yeah, completely. Fifth, I paint alongside with them. Sixth, I make sure to teach them the roller technique where you're going in different directions, and I ask them to go very slow. Children like to rush, and that roller can be really fun, but it's no good when they get going fast. Next, once they master a big area, then I let them try a smaller roller in a small area, for example, between windows or close up to an edge. Once they've mastered that, I do teach them to use a brush to cut edges, but I make sure I have taped thoroughly, and I'm there with a wet cloth in case I need to wipe any little spots where they might have gone past where we've taped. Ninth, I encourage them a lot, and I do come behind them to touch up, but I try to communicate in those moments that I'm helping them and not fixing what they've done because they've done a bad job. All of us need someone to come behind and do a little touch up. And last and 10th, I always make sure that I communicate that they're more important than the house looking perfect. I expect mistakes, and we're just ready to learn how to clean up those mistakes. I do make a mistake, I make sure to point it out to them. I show them where my mistake is, and we have a good laugh, and I tease them that they're better at this than I am, and I make it a very positive experience. As a bonus tip, I always make sure that I'm not having them do this painting too much at a time. Kids get bored, and after a while it's not fun anymore, and so I make sure they get a lot of breaks, and I make sure that I'm not kind of pushing them too hard in this area. Ava's become a bit of a fixture in my DIY videos, and that's because she really enjoys it, so I let that be her daily chore, and I let her set the pace. So each day in her bedroom, she's just done one section of that ceiling so she doesn't get overwhelmed. As we come to the end of this video, we have a little friend that we would like you to meet. This is my daughter Yvonne's guinea pig. His name is Dylan. He doesn't come downstairs much, but he is a bright light in our family. I hope you found motivation and encouragement in my video today and some tips that will help you on your DIY journey. Please consider sharing this video with anyone that you think it might help on your social media. And as always, I love you and God loves you too, and I'll see you next time.